expansion is also playing a role not to make the promoters exit out of the CDR?
See, CDR is a facility given for, overcoming a temporary liquidity mismatch. If that is the intention, and if these triggers are provided, see, CDR, even the lenders, they don't want a company to remain in CDR indefinitely. They want the company to go out and expand. So any expansion, your performance improved 25% more than the CDR projections. Mind you, you are talking of 25% more than the CDR projections. That means CDR projection itself is to some extent, we call it realistic or a little optimistic. Doing better than that by over 25%. I think you are doing really well. That's why a trigger point. Second trigger point is the expansion. Expansion is a matter. If you want to improve your viability, expansion is required. I mean, these are triggers. These are not, you can always, you are in CDR, you have a relationship with the bankers, your lenders. I mean, this can be discussed.
How about right of recompense? That is very dangerous thing, which makes the company again unviable. Means if it is a 5, 10, 50 crore rupees, it becomes unviable, really unviable.
No, I agree with you that right of recompense, it is very much in the discussion stage. Lot needs to be done towards that. Even I agree with you. It should be a definite figure. One should know what is my liability towards that. I agree with you that right of recompense needs to be defined in clear terms.
Question from smaller companies. It's difficult for a small company to afford the kind of fees which sophisticated professionals charge for taking the thing through CDR. I'm talking of professional fees, not anything else. Is it possible, and I'm not talking of SMEs who get protected. There's a whole range of business in India who don't fall in the very tight SME regulations, but who are nevertheless smaller businesses. Is it possible for the banks to help out in this process, maybe by for example, sometimes the fees upfront can be as high as 1 crore. Now, a person who's asking for adjustment doesn't have 1 crore fees to give to a sophisticated private professional advisor. So is it possible for the banks to help out in this process, number one? And number two, like the gentleman was saying, that a promoter is in difficulties when he asks for CDR. We want the promoter to arrange equity from somewhere. Now, there are institutional equity givers, but no institutional equity giver is going to step in if his money and principal will be at risk or will be prioritized lower. So in the CDR process, is it possible for the banks as a last resort to make it easier for equity givers to step in? It reduces the risk all around and it improves the prospect of the company coming out, provided the equity giver is also reassured of some kind of benefit out of this.
The first thing that you're talking about is the professional advice. We don't generally ask, depending on the size of the unit. If they cannot afford it, I don't think banks ever force any unit to go for any of these huge expenditure. In fact, there are many cases where we have done this at the bank's cost. We have paid the fee. Secondly, at least in SBI, we have our own consultancy cell, we have our own project finance cell, and we have the expert panel. So we take their help and we get this done, especially for the SMEs. We don't really expect them to, we don't want them to shell out 1 crore and 2 crores on these kind of things. The second question is about the equity. I don't know what exactly you mean by the bankers facilitating, because any equity player who wants to invest in a unit which has gone to CDR comes of his own volition, and I'm sure he does his own study and analysis. So what do they expect from the bank is something I think I didn't get your question properly.
Yeah, generally banks are quite hesitant, particularly with smaller companies, to take haircuts in India compared to the Western world. And therefore, in the Western world, you see a lot of such restructuring happening with people giving equity also. So is it something which is possible to do? Because in the long term, raising additional equity is one of the best chances that a company is going to have. But where will the promoter raise the equity from? Either himself or some institutional equity giver. Now, no institutional equity giver will step in unless and until he sees some prospects of his principal and some returns.
No, as Mrs. Kumar said, I think the equity investor has to take his own call while investing in the company by doing proper due diligence and evaluating the proposal.
But there have been instances when the private equity or an additional investor comes in and as a part of the rehabilitation package, if some sacrifice has to be made or a haircut to be taken, we have done that.
If it makes business sense, I think banks will do that.
We have done that. But it all depends on case to case. See, everything depends ultimately on the commitment of this customer to the business, whether he really wants to continue or he is just using this to get more money from somebody else or from the banker. So it all depends on a case-to-case basis only we can decide. It's very difficult to give a general guideline on this.
There's a question here from someone from the Indian Hume Pipe. He says, in respect of CDR units, what is normally the view taken by banks while rating the units during internal assessment? What is meant by this, sir? Who is the gentleman?
Internal ratings.
Facilities given by them. So for the CDR units, do they think that this unit is to be taken, treated separately or something like?
I think you all have a one rating model, I think.
Modules for rating the CDR units. It's a common module on which we rate the units.
No, but under the parameter, wherever the marking or rating is there, some various marks are given over there. So is there any separate parameter for CDR?
No, there is no separate parameter. It is treated at par with others.
I am Advocate Dhunna. I am associated with banks and I am on the panel of few banks. And while there is a stress more on the time lag in sanctioning CDR package, I want to also point out that there is a lot of time lag in implementing and documentation, which is a key point from where the CDR starts. Now, one point where I have come across is the documentation while creating charge. Now, most of these caps or those who are making documents, they want, because of the stamp duty incidents, they want to combine mortgage and hypothecation in one document. And while in those documents, instead of writing hypothecation, in the mortgage deed itself, they create a charge. Now, thereby, the problem comes with individual bankers, while traditionally they want a hypothecation charge to be registered with ROC. This mortgage deed is simply creating a mortgage charge, which is only possible in English mortgage deed, which is another issue altogether. But then everywhere it gets stuck up. And every banker has to again decide whether they will agree to this type of charge. And unfortunately, these caps who are making document, they don't want to help. And as far as the customers are concerned, they want to pay less duty of 10 lakhs and try to complete the transaction. The things get delayed, and the delay is so deliberate that ultimately bankers, without thinking anything, go ahead with it. Or another thing which I have seen is asking for more time. In fact, one of the customers who had the CDR package, he says the extension is a norm in CDR package. So if a CDR is come, it means I will take another 6 months for implementing it, because I'm sure that you will be taking. So a lot of time is spent in documentation. Another part is the advocates who are preparing MCR, Master Reconstruction, MRA and other agreements. They are also not on the panel of all the banks. So there has to be something whereby...
Some smoothening of the process has to be done. That's what you are meaning. The point is well taken. Yeah, but let me once again point out in
there is one more point. Excuse me, I'm very sorry. There is one more point. The third point is where the promoters they have to bring in certain things. I got one, there are so many cases which I have gone through. But one case I want to point out here, there was one customer who has said that I'll be alienating my surplus land and I'll be bringing that money into equity. Now, nobody has asked him in what way he'll bring, what is the modality he is going to do. After passing CDR, he said, I will either demerge, either I will sell, either I will do this. And in the process, 5 months have been passed. He was given hardly 12 months. Absolutely. And still, the person who was to go in was not aware what type of agreement he is going to do. So in the escrow agreement which I was preparing, we were not knowing how to come out of it.
See, CDR has provided enough, opportunities for all these cases to be tackled by forming a monitoring committee. No, not that this could be. Your point is delay in everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Once again, the CDR circular clearly says from the date of letter of approval within 45 days, the banks have to give the final sanction. Within 45 days thereof, you should implement. Everything is in paper. It is up to the banks and the borrower to cooperate once the approval is there to see that these timelines are, kept up in their own interest. The delays could not be avoided. In any case, the outer limit is 180 days, as you know.
Sir, that question is not of delay. The question is the bottleneck. The banker doesn't want to delay.
It will all be there.
These things, which is the reality of the
okay,
day,
you
has
made
to be
your
addressed. So all the members who are into CDR should decide that yes, we will go it with mortgage charge instead of hypothecation. You write one thing in hypothecation charge, and when you come to implement it, you go for mortgage charge. So thereby, the accountability part on the side of the banker increases. At the same time, the promoter very well know that they had no choice. So otherwise, that standard asset problem comes for them.
Okay, absolutely. We originally had a member who was legally qualified, but unfortunately he opted out in the last minute. He could have answered your question better, I think. I'm sorry. They can always have a...
Sir, the answer is not lying with the law. The answer lies with the implementation.
Okay.
You can create mortgage charge, you can create hypothecation charge. What banker wants.
Point taken.
In fact, the purpose of monitoring committee is to sort out all these issues.
I'll take one last question. The gentleman who has written, he says he has given a background. A company which is a running company and has a scope for good future after 2-3 years, but finding it difficult to service debts due to lower sales and presently. The query is, generally banks are not ready to even accept any delay over due date. How bank would behave if company opts for CDR? Obviously, if the opportunity comes after 2-3 years, it is a question, which pushes it into the TV study area. They will make a study and then find out whether, whatever you say is correct, then take a call. These all go into the arena of viability. If the unit is viable, obviously you can take it to CDR. That generally bank shrinks or withdraws their support for regular limits when any company opts for CDR. This will be more damaging for running company, and company remains ours by not opting for CDR, though it is needed. This also, I think we answered this question saying that there is what is known as a holding on operation. Then the last question he says is, when company opts for CDR, foreign banks do not participate and start reducing its share in limits immediately. It relates to foreign banks. Existing bankers show ours to give support to the company since CDR tag is attached. How to have assurance of banks for giving? I think all these are going into the realm of judgment. It is up to you, to take a viable case. If the case is viable, it all goes into viability. If the viability is proved beyond doubt, I think the banks will not hesitate to restructure an account under CDR. With that, I think we come to the end of the panel discussion. Thank you all very much. One last question we will take. Yes.
Hello. Actually, I am from United Bank of India. On the banker's side, I want to just clarify one thing. The working group has recommended that in case of restructured standard assets, the provision is to be increased from 2% to 5%. Actually, the bankers are making huge provision in restructuring of account, and apart from that, it will be a great hit to the bank's profitability. I think this 5%, 2% to 5% increase should not be there. Another point is that regarding from the upgradation of the NPA accounts, NPA restructured accounts, now it is from the first repayment date 1 year. but it has been recommended from the, for the sublimits which are the repayment latest, from that date it will be 1 year. So including the moratorium period also. So I think the bankers will not be so much happy in this sort of modifications suggested or recommended by the working group. So it should be actually a joint venture of the company and the bankers. So both of them should be agreed in this respect. I think bankers should not suffer so much.
As
So
Mr. Kumar said, all these issues were discussed in yesterday's meeting in IBA. I'm sure your bank also would have given those suggestions. Let us hope that something better come out of these meetings. Thank you all very much for the patient listening. Now, Arpita.
Thank you, sir. I would like to thank our esteemed panel members, Mrs. Kumar, Mr. Anthony, Mr. Sangar, and Mr. Sundaram for a very insightful and engaging discussion, one of the most relevant and hotly discussed topics in these stress times. I would also like to thank Mr. Madhavan for anchoring and moderating this session. I would now like to invite Mr. Kalyanaraman to give a formal vote of thanks and close this session formally. I'll request our guests to join us for lunch after this vote of thanks. And finally, I'm really grateful to all of you for being here on a non-working day and making this conference a success. Thank you so much.
This is the most difficult speech because everybody is interested in moving out, but I will try to keep it short. I have to thank our chief guest in his absence, distinguished panel members, general managers and other executives of banks, executives of asset recovery, asset reconstruction companies, private equity funds, various industry representatives, corporates, finance managers, media, everybody present here. I actually approached the subject of corporate debt restructuring with trepidation during one of our internal discussions when we started thinking of hosting a seminar on this subject, this being one of the most hotly discussed subjects nowadays. I use the word trepidation because the subject truly is one where people would like to tread carefully. However, as explained earlier, we felt it is an area where people needed much clarity, substantial guidance, effective support, as well as a lot of transparency. This we felt can be achieved only by involving people who are experienced and knowledgeable in the field with hands-on experience on the subject matter, keeping the common good in mind while deliberating on the subject. That is how we finally arrived. Of course, now I can breathe a bit easy and say thank you all after the successful completion of the event. Centrum gratefully acknowledges the support given by everyone present here for making the conference a successful as well as a useful one. Dr. Chakraborty, the Deputy Governor, always busy as his position demands it, chose to sacrifice a non-working day and be with us, thus encouraging us to take this journey. And his only question to me when I approached him was, how come you chose this subject? We have seen his deep concern towards the problems faced by smaller and medium-scale units and other companies, and his positive approach towards the rehabilitation aspect provides the deep understanding, besides the deep understanding and knowledge about the overall financial system. All present have been benefited by his presence here, and I thank him wholeheartedly on my behalf, on behalf of Centrum, as also on behalf of all those that are present here. Madam Soundara Kumar, Deputy Managing Director of State Bank of India, shoulders the onerous responsibility of handling the stressed asset management department. Her commitment to the responsibility she bears was reflected in her comments as well as guidances during the discussion. Madam, I extend my heartfelt thanks to you for being present here with all of us today and enriching the deliberation. Sri Sangar, GM Union Bank of India, a person who has spent a substantial part of his career in handling credit as well as stressed asset has brought in his inputs during the discussion. I thank him for accepting my invitation at a short notice and coming here. Sri C.B. Antony, MD and CEO of Edelweiss ARC, combines the experience of a term lender, a stint in CDR cell, and also now an asset reconstruction company, where he has also got opportunities to deal with stressed asset management funds. He provides support from that area also. He has enlightened the invitees with all his valuable guidance, including his banking perspective. I thank you, Mr. Antony, for being with us today and the keen interest you have taken in the discussion, providing substantial examples also. As a step towards providing a 360 degrees point of view, we also requested Mr. Sundaram, President and Company Secretary, Indocount Industries, to be a participant to reflect the views of corporates. He has effectively brought forth the benefits that a genuine corporate can derive from the CDR forum in times of distress, and also provided valuable hints regarding the safeguards the corporates should take while they pursue the goals for success and growth. I am thankful to him for sharing his experience with us. I must acknowledge that I am overwhelmed by the response to our invitation from a large number of senior bankers, ARC companies, corporates, and practically from everybody in the field of finance, including the industrial sector. I am confident that the role played by Centrum in bringing you all to this forum will be useful. I thank you all for reposing faith in Centrum, in the speakers, and in this forum, and be with us here today. I am grateful to the electronic as well as print media for evincing interest in the subject matter of the conference, the contents, the timeliness of the event, and also the contribution by the speakers. The print and electronic media have extended their full support. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. I also extend my sincere thanks to the ITC hotels for the excellent help extended to ensure the comfort of the participants, the printers and other technicians, florists, who have also remained invisible but ensured a smooth and pleasant function. I would also, last but not the least, like to acknowledge the good work and efforts put in by all Centrum family in making this conference a success, and also reach out to a very substantial section of our clientele and also those who are not part of our clientele. I conclude by saying a big thanks to one and all who have taken the trouble of being with us today. Thank you all.